I'll tell you what, I really don't want to make this decision at all. I want this to be something that we support the will of the voters. And I think the last speaker was reading my thoughts. In fact, I expressed my concerns with being forced into a vote earlier today when I spoke to Dr. Mesler, that I don't think it's proper for us to make that decision tonight. I think it's way premature. I think we need to hear what the public says. I'm sure there's quite a few more people in the public who would weigh in on this via a vote. They can't be here for whatever reason. So I'd like to make a motion that we table this vote until we see what the true will of the voters is after the March election.
Yeah, it was not my intention to call for action, so I'm behind you 100%.
Where it says action on the,
Just say
There's a
Does say
motion,
action
there's a
on it.
motion on the floor. I'll second it for discussion.
Okay. So does anyone want to discuss?
Well, you wanted to discuss.
Me?
Yeah, you were offering an opinion.
Yeah,
It says informational here.
it says information/action, and
Information.
to be honest, it was my understanding it was supposed to be just informational. Anyone can make a motion at any time, and a board member could certainly make a motion to make a decision on Sandown Central tonight, but that was not my intention. I wanted to hear from the public. I think we need time to absorb this. So I don't even think we need a motion to not have a motion.
Okay.
You know, but that's just, you know, I'm not clear on where that falls with parliamentary procedure, but I was not looking to entertain a motion. But now that we have a motion on the floor to not vote, does anyone want to discuss that further, or should we move that question? Mr. Bealow?
I'd like to discuss it further.
Sure.
I guess I'm not unsympathetic to Kelly's motion. But at the end of the day, you know, we're paid the big bucks to,
metaphorically speaking.
metaphorically speaking,
Pay your neighbor's taxes.
to try to, you know, guide this school district. And, you know, stepping back and just saying, well, let's just let the voters decide, I think I'm not good with. And yes, I understand that there are these warrant articles, you know, out there, and they can turn our decision, but I really think it's our duty to state our desires plainly before the deliberative session. Now, in a way, we've already stated our desires by by removing funding from next year's budget to keep Sandown Central open. But that's not a straight up kind of, in my mind, that's not a straight up plain way of doing so. I just don't think it's fair to the voters or taxpayers or anyone.
I know.
Anybody else? Mrs. Delfino?
Just for clarification, is the motion to table it until after the election?
Correct.
Or just table it for tonight, table it until after the election? All right, thank you.
You mean the deliberative session or the election?
The election.
Mrs. Sherman?
I really thought a lot about this. Closing a school, from a teacher's point of view, is not pretty. But given the financial situation, that the Budget Committee has given us that dollar figure, and with the option, and all these warrant articles, and I have to agree with Mr. Fraley, I'd like to hold our vote till after the voters have a chance to ring in if you want that. Social media has blown up this week after the public hearing. I certainly contributed that as a private citizen. But it leaves us with a lot of things to think about. And it weighs heavy on me to make a decision to close a school and move kids from here to there and back and forth. And we already have kids that move from Sandown to some of our TLC programs at Pollard, and we do bus some kids around as it is. And I'd like to, I don't want to close the school at all. So I'd like to wait. I agree with Kelly and Mr. Fraley.
Mrs. Delfino?
At this very moment, I have mixed feelings about this particular motion. I think for me, we didn't sort of spontaneously decide that we're going to put the closing of Sandown Central on the table. We were given this budget. It's $750,000 that have to come out of this budget. That's a huge amount of money. And we're trying to think, how can we do this and impact as few students as possible? And I'm with you, Mrs. Sherman. The idea of closing a school, I hate it. But the bottom line is, closing Sandown Central, we're not stopping any programs, we're not stopping any services. We're moving these students from one school to the other. And obviously there are concerns with that. But obviously, if that doesn't happen, we have to cut $750,000 from somewhere. And you're talking about losing teachers from somewhere else. It's going to mean class sizes go up somewhere. It's going to mean some students don't get to take classes somewhere, or they don't get to participate in music or athletics, or people are paying to ride the bus. Someone somewhere is going to feel the ramifications of this. And it's very easy to talk about cutting the budget and, $1 million here, $1 million there. It makes a difference. It means the district isn't going to be the same when you wake up on March 11th. It's going to be different. So I'm thinking about your motion, Kelly. I have mixed feelings about it because I agree. I think as a school board member, we're put here to set the path for the district. And I've said it before, I never wanted to be in the position to make this decision when I got on this board. But unfortunately, this is what we've come to. This is what budget cuts mean. It means somebody somewhere suffers the consequences. So that's all I have to say at this time.
Thank you. Mrs. Green?
Let's do a thought experiment and think about what it would mean to take a vote tonight or at the next meeting. Let's decide, as a thought experiment, that we are going to vote on closing the school. And this is what we have to consider. There's been no exploration of alternative plans at the board level. Not a single one has been presented to us. There's been talk of a list. We have no list. We have not seen a single alternative. There's been no consideration of the cost of building code upgrades to Sandown Central for a change of use for administrative purposes. There's been no talk of the consequences of a tax impact if that building goes from being a school to something else. There's no discussion of what that future use of the building is going to be. There has been zero discussion about the adaptations needed at the other elementary schools to accommodate the dispersed special education programs. There is no special education reassignment plan that's been discussed with the board whatsoever. We have not seen a classroom plan in Sandown North. There is no traffic plan, and the school board has not toured either school during class time. In fact, as everyone knows, I'm sure I've been prohibited by the chair from entering the schools during operational hours. So given this incredible absence of information, we are actually presenting ourselves to the public as being able to make a judgment about closing a school. That is an insult to the public who expects us to behave in a rational fashion.
So you'd support us waiting till
I
after
would
the vote?
absolutely
Mrs.
support
Sherman?
us waiting until after the vote. However,
Thank
I
you.
want the public to be aware that even if the public does vote to keep Sandown Central open, the board is under no obligation, as I understand it from the public hearing, to actually keep the school open. And I find that a conundrum. How is it that the public can vote to tell us, to instruct us to do one thing, and yet, you know, yes doesn't mean yes? So I would like some explanation about that.
Mr. Sapia has indicated he'd like to speak. Do you want to answer a question, or shall we move on?
No.
All right,